91. The Treaty of Karlowitz marked a turning point in Ottoman history, but it did not signal the end of the Ottoman Empire. Instead, it represented a shift from an era of continuous expansion to one of reassessment, adaptation, and survival in a rapidly changing world. As Europe entered a new phase of political balance and military modernization, the Ottomans faced the challenge of maintaining legitimacy and authority without the momentum of conquest that had defined their rise for centuries. Signed in 1699, the Treaty of Karlowitz concluded a long and exhausting conflict between the Ottoman Empire and a coalition of European powers, including the Habsburgs, Poland-Lithuania, Venice, and Russia. For the first time in its history, the Ottoman state formally ceded significant territories in Central and Southeastern Europe. Hungary, Transylvania, and parts of the Balkans passed out of Ottoman control, reshaping the political map of the region. While these losses were substantial, they did not dismantle the empire. On the contrary, the Ottomans remained one of the largest and most influential states in the world at the dawn of the 18th century. Stretching across 3 continents, the empire still governed vast lands in the Middle East, North Africa, Anatolia, and southeastern Europe. Its population was among the largest of any contemporary empire, encompassing a remarkable diversity of ethnicities, languages, and religions. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived under a system that, while imperfect, allowed for a degree of communal autonomy through established legal and administrative traditions. This diversity remained a key source of imperial resilience, providing manpower, economic productivity, and cultural depth. Economic strength continued to play a central role in sustaining Ottoman legitimacy. Despite territorial losses in Europe, the empire retained control over crucial trade routes connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Major commercial arteries passing through Istanbul, Aleppo, Cairo, and Damascus linked Mediterranean markets with the Indian Ocean world. Goods such as spices, textiles, grain, and precious metals flowed through Ottoman lands, generating revenue and reinforcing the state's role as a commercial bridge between East and West. These networks ensured that the empire remained deeply embedded in global trade, even as European maritime powers expanded their reach. Religious authority further reinforced the empire's standing. The Ottoman Sultan continued to hold the title of Caliph, a position that carried immense symbolic weight across the Islamic world. Custodianship of Islam's holiest cities, Mecca and Medina, strengthened the Sultan's claim to leadership beyond mere territorial control. Each year, the organization and protection of pilgrimage routes demonstrated the state's ability to fulfill one of its most sacred responsibilities. The successful management of the Hajj not only affirmed religious legitimacy but also showcased administrative competence and logistical power. Strategic geography also worked in the empire's favor. Control of key waterways such as the Bosphorus and Dardanelles allowed the Ottomans to regulate movement between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. This position gave the state leverage over regional trade and naval access, making it a critical player in European and Eurasian geopolitics. Even as military supremacy waned, geography ensured continued relevance. However, the post-Karlowitz world demanded change. The era of unilateral Ottoman dominance in Europe had ended. European states increasingly relied on standing armies, advanced artillery, and coordinated alliances. Diplomacy became more structured, and warfare more costly. The Ottomans, accustomed to expansion through force, now faced a system where power was balanced and negotiated rather than imposed. This shift forced Ottoman leaders to rethink the foundations of imperial strength. Rather than collapsing under pressure, the empire entered a prolonged period of adjustment. Military setbacks encouraged introspection and reform, while administrative continuity prevented chaos. The state remained functional, collecting taxes, administering justice, and maintaining order across its territories. Provincial governors, religious officials, and bureaucrats continued to operate within long-established frameworks, preserving a sense of stability. The early 18th century witnessed cautious experimentation as the Ottomans explored new ways to assert legitimacy. Cultural patronage, architectural projects, and intellectual exchange became tools of statecraft. Elite interest in European science, art, and diplomacy signaled an awareness that power could be expressed through knowledge and refinement, as well as military might. This was not an abandonment of Ottoman tradition, but an attempt to adapt it to new realities. Crucially, the empire's survival rested on its ability to redefine success. No longer measured solely by conquest, legitimacy increasingly depended on effective governance, economic management, and the protection of subjects. Maintaining peace along frontiers, securing trade, and balancing relations with rival powers became central objectives. The Ottomans sought to avoid prolonged wars that drained resources and instead favored limited conflicts and negotiated settlements. The persistence of the Ottoman state after Karlowitz challenges simplistic narratives of decline. While the empire undoubtedly faced serious difficulties, it remained a coherent political entity with significant assets. Its institutions adapted slowly and unevenly, but they did adapt. The loss of territory did not erase imperial identity, nor did it immediately undermine the loyalty of subjects who continued to view the Sultan as a legitimate ruler. By the beginning of the 18th century, the Ottoman Empire stood at a crossroads. It was no longer the unstoppable force that had once threatened Vienna, yet it was far from a defeated or irrelevant power. Instead, it had entered an age of transformation, marked by compromise, recalibration, and selective reform. The legacy of Karlowitz was not collapse, but the beginning of a long struggle to survive in a world increasingly shaped by European political, military, and economic dominance. In this new environment, the Ottomans preserved legitimacy by drawing on deep-rooted traditions, strategic advantages, and adaptive governance. The empire's endurance demonstrated that power in the modern age could rest not only on expansion, but also on the ability to manage diversity, control resources, and project authority through institutions rather than conquest. The story of the Ottoman Empire after Karlowitz is therefore not one of sudden decline, but of resilience in the face of profound change.